Here's the biggest thing. That is where the foot peg broke off.
What's up, Vintage Moto fans? Back at home. It's been a couple of weeks, but honestly, I feel like I'm still recovering from that awesome race. I'm so happy to see that you guys like the video, and I gotta tell you, I really appreciate all of your kind comments. They're just so nice. But I haven't even unloaded the bikes, so I've got a couple things to do. I've got to get these things unloaded and get them assessed, see if we heard anything that I didn't see while we were out there in the desert. And once we do that, I'm going to update you on the BSA 441 project.
We're also going to fire up the 67 T100C because it hasn't had any love in a while.
That sounds good to you. That sounds good to me. Let's get going. We don't want them too clean because the oil is good evidence of things we might need to fix.
So before we get into the assessment on these bikes, I just wanted to remind everyone, if you like this channel and you want to support it, the best way to do so is by purchasing a shirt from the website. Now, I just built a new website that integrates better with YouTube, so you should be able to buy a shirt really easily by pushing on that button right down there, which will take you right to the right place where you can make that purchase. Appreciate you guys so much. Thanks for rocking the shirts. Let's look at these bikes. All right, so for the Cub, we got a few things here. Now, obviously, none of these were enough to stop Kim from finishing the race, but there is some stuff that we're gonna have to fix. The most obvious being, of course, this front brake lever. Now, this actually broke at the perch when Kim fell in one of the sand washes. These were MGO aluminum levers. The MGO levers are copies of the original Amel levers that were available at this time. And the original ones were forged aluminum, so they were much stronger, and these are cast, so they're more brittle, and they broke. So that's a good learning moment, and maybe that helps you guys. If I had to do this again, I probably would have run steel levers on this bike instead of the aluminum levers, just because they're more likely to bend. They're a little hardier. I love the feel of these, especially in a trials situation, which is why I have them on this bike. But maybe for a desert racing application, I would have been better off, or Kim would have been better off with the steel ones. So there's that. A little one here, Kim lost the nut on the bolt that secures the front of the seat. Thankfully, the rear ones were nice and tight, and the bolt is still in there, so I guess no harm, no foul there. Okay, but here's the biggest thing. There is a ton of play in these rear bushings that attach the swing arm to the frame, basically, or locate the swing arm in the frame. So the way this works is, in the frame there's a big pin that is pressed in, and then the swing arm slides on with two bronze bushings, and those bushings wear over time. Now, this bike had a little tiny bit, like not enough to write home about, but after that race, that took him over the edge for sure. So that is going to need to get replaced. It's a bit of a nightmare. As far as I know, that's pressed in, so it's got to get pressed out. I think there's some aftermarket options that will be great for that. But that's going to be a pretty big job. I might have to pull the motor so we can get this frame in a press in order to do that. So that's going to be a big project, obviously worth doing. This bike is incredible. It made it through the race. It made it through all the abuse that I've put it through so far, and I think it has a lot more miles left. So that was all I really saw. Oh, the other thing was, it is leaking a lot of oil, and it smells to me like motor oil. This is like an old herringbone oil line, so it's possible that there could be a little crack there, or maybe one of these hose those clamps need to get retightened, but obviously the bike had enough oil to make it through. It looks like it's leaking here out of the points cover. There's no points in there because this is running an Electrics World ignition, but I'm gonna pop that up, see if I can address that seal in there. I can't really remember what seal is in there, but that might get replaced too. But overall, kind of standard battle damage. Pretty sure it's got blown fork seals too. I've never replaced them on this bike, so I wouldn't be surprised if it's time. Other than that, it did great. Let's move on to this one. So assessment of the 57 Triumph TR6. As always, this thing is a brute, and you guys already know the biggest problem I have with this bike, which is that foot peg, which broke off in the first couple minutes of the race. I also have a foot peg problem over here we'll go over, and I've got a throttle cable issue that I didn't even mention in the last video that I mentioned today. I think I blocked it out of my mind because it got so sketchy in addition to the foot peg fiasco, but we're gonna go over that now. Other than that, I don't really see anything. So let's zoom in on this foot peg. All right, so hopefully you can see this here, but you can see that is where the foot peg broke off. Now this is the original mount here. The previous owner, I don't know if it was in the 60s or the 90s or whenever, but they cut it off and they welded on a tab here that allowed folding foot peg that you could put a Bates rubber on. I've obviously seen modifications like this before, and I really never thought to address it or test it or try to reinforce it because it has taken so much abuse in the past and never been a problem. But obviously that was an oversight on my part, and I should keep a closer eye on that kind of stuff when we're riding it this hard. But yeah, I'll show you the other peg. So you can see here on the other side, this has been giving me trouble too. This Bates rubber here is, man, it's tore up. It's I obviously have done my best to keep it from sliding off, but just couldn't. It's been safety drilled and safety wired, but yeah, it just couldn't handle it. You can see this one's welded up in the same way that the other one was with this tab here. So at this point, I mean, you guys know I love period correct stuff, and I think these Bates rubbers are so cool. But for what I use this bike for, and considering that one broke, and I've had problems with my foot slipping off, I think it's time for me to move to some more modern pegs on this bike. So in a future video, I'll be getting some new pegs and fabricating some mounts that are not gonna break. So that's my plan on that. At a certain point, the old stuff is cool, but if you're gonna thrash on these bikes like I do, sometimes you gotta do some modern upgrades. It's all good. Plenty of other old stuff going on this bike. So let's look at that throttle cable. All right, so I'm gonna do my darndest to show you this. It's kind of a small piece, but this throttle cable is frankly too short. It's another thing that I should have taken care of before this event and didn't. And one of our pit chief, Derek Deagle, actually saw this before the race, and it was just too late to do anything about it. But this is routed in a way that can get bound up in this steering neck, and that's exactly what happened. And it actually pinched this ferrule, and it caused just enough resistance that the throttle would stick a bit, which was quite unnerving, especially considering I only had one foot controlling this bike as well. But I just kind of made do with it. Actually, now I'm looking at this, both ferrules are pinched. Thankfully, they weren't locked up completely, but that made for a little bit more excitement in that race. This is just going to get taken off, tossed in the trash, and thanks to Matt over at Speed and Sport, I now have a complete kit so I can build my own cable. So I'm going to be doing that with plenty of cable length to stretch it up and over the bars and route it safely, so this can't happen again. So another good lesson there, and this sport is full of lessons, so you gotta like to learn if you're into these old bikes, but I certainly do. So that's pretty much all I see wrong with these two bikes after 50 miles of abuse in California's whooped out desert. It's pretty impressive if you ask me. These bikes were obviously made to last, with this one pushing 60 years and this one pushing 70 years. Gotta love Triumph. All right, so if you're not sick of hearing me jibber jabber, you want an update on that BSA 441 project, let's go sneak into the garage and I'll show you. All right, so hopefully you guys remember this project. It's a 66 BSA 441 Victor, first year model, ton of original parts, including an original paint tank. I'll put a link up here if you want to go back and watch that intro video, but it's a really good bike, and I'm working on bringing the intake system back to factory. And I needed some help doing that. I've got some people here that help me out that I want to talk about, but let's look at what we got here. All right, so I have been collecting these parts for weeks now, and this is part of the fun about working on old vintage bikes. You get an old parts catalog and you figure out everything you need to bring the bike back to the way that it was put together originally in Birmingham. And that's exactly what I've done here, thanks to the help of Peter Quick at BSA Unit Singles and Jerry Meadows over at Ace British Cycles. Met Jerry at a local event here actually in my town, and he won first in class with a BSA Golden Flash that was just stunning. Jerry got me set up with this hard to find carburetor. He actually pieced it together out of a giant box of Amel monoblock stuff that he had. So really appreciate him doing that. Got this cable set up, got the whole thing put together. Really appreciate you, Jerry. And then Peter Quick has all of the hard to find parts you need if you're putting together a BSA unit single. Look at how many pieces need to go in here before we even mount the carburetor. These studs here are different for each side, and they're very specialized. The nuts are special. I was able, luckily, to find this original fiberglass airbox on eBay. This hose that connects the airbox to the carburetor also came from Peter Quick. And if anyone out there has the piece, the original factory piece that screwed onto the carburetor and went into here, and you want to reach out to me, I would love to buy that piece. Also, if anyone has the original factory air filter that goes in here, I'm looking for that as well. Would love to buy that from you if you've got one on your shelf. In addition to that, I purchased these seat mounts. This is the front, this is the rear, and I've got another seat from Blazing Saddles coming down from the UK. That should be here any day now. So once I have that, I'm gonna take a run at putting all this stuff onto that bike, and we can get to making a bike that we can go and take out and have some fun off-road. So that's the update on that project. Well, all right, friends. I appreciate you listening to me talk for that long. I kind of feel like it'd be wrong to have a episode go by without us hearing an old motorcycle. So since we can't let that happen, I'm gonna fire up this old 67 Triumph T100C, because you know I haven't run it in a while, and if you don't use them, you lose them. Let's see if she'll go for us. We're ready for a bike and a beer episode. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments if you're ready for one. I feel like we haven't done one in a while. I would love to. Burn out. I'll see you next Saturday with a whole new video. Cheers! Thanks so much for watching that video. Be sure to tune in every Saturday morning for more fun and adventures. There's over 30 motorcycles to check out on the Bike and a Beer series, and we now have t-shirts available for sale. Follow along for some epic adventures in the High Sierra on all types of rare and incredible motorcycles. There's a workshop element to this channel too, as I do a lot of my own mechanical work. I'll share all the tips and tricks I've learned, show you all the tools I use to get it done, and there'll be some exciting new products to promote as well. So join in every Saturday morning, and don't forget to subscribe, like, and turn on notifications. Thanks.